right, here we go. Welcome in to the Denver Sports Podcast, brought to you by normally Breckenridge Brew, but it looks like we got DraftKings there going today. Well, I mean, it is Breck, but DraftKings is another great friend of ours. We'll have more on them later. Really excited for this episode today. This is the first episode in a new series that we'll be doing here with TDSP, where we'll be having some of our fantastic colleagues from around the sports media world join us here in studio to have some good roundtable discussions about all the different teams here in the state. And I get to kick things off. The NHL trade deadline just passed, so I'm joined by Peter Baugh from The Athletic and Raj, host of Between the Pipes on Altitude Radio, the Avs post-game show that goes live right after the game, correct?
Yeah, right after the game. Appreciate you having both of us on. It's a super exciting time, despite the snoozer that we got to watch last night at Baugh Arena, but way she goes sometime.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Peter, you and I chat all the time in the media room, and I was like, it's about time we have you down here, and we'll put some of these conversations on recording. So, yeah, you had some car trouble, so you battled to get down here in true hockey fashion.
I'm the reason that we're starting late. So apologies to all viewers, and thank you for having me.
You're great. I appreciate it. But let's kind of get into it, right? Because we've gone through a crazy couple weeks. You know, Peter, you and I were talking yesterday that it's nice that it's all behind us. You kind of are off that high-strung checking your phone. My screen time is going to thank me this week. I didn't want to check it last week. But trade deadline in general, was there anything that jumped out to either one of you guys from around the league? Well, so we're going to get into the Avs and the moves they've made and kind of their outlook. But wanted to start on a little bit more broad scope. Anything that jumped out to you guys?
I think it's just really interesting how much more of a seller's market it is in season. Like, you look at what the Avs gave up for Devon Toews in the offseason. You look at what the Blues gave up for Pavel Buchnevich in the offseason. And then you look at what teams are giving up in the regular season, and it's like, holy cow, Delorier's getting a third-round pick. Like, Josh Manson got a second-round pick and a good prospect.
What do you mean, goal scorer? Delorier scores in his first game? Come on
That
now.
is true. That is true.
That's a first-line forward.
Assisted by Tyson Jost.
Was it really? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. It was just interesting how much of a seller's market it was, and how much teams are willing to spend when the desperation level's a little higher, including the Avs, who had to do some stuff.
Yeah,
it was crazy. There were 33 trades on deadline day. It didn't seem like it was going to get anywhere near that until an hour before the deadline hit. And even so, we got like an Elvis Dumerville situation where a trade either doesn't go through because is it late? Was there a no trade clause? And now Vegas is screwed as they have $25 million of injured players, and they're trying to find ways to get guys in and under the cap. And Dadonov has Anaheim as a no-trade team, but Vegas didn't know that, and the Central Registry didn't get it either. Like, that was the big thing I learned, is that the Central Registry in the National Hockey League, there's not like a safeguard. It's not like you pop in player X for player Y with Z contract, and something comes up with a big old red X if there's a no-trade clause in the contract. Doesn't work that way, apparently.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of... Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot on Monday, and I want to circle back to the Dadonov stuff, because that I've written about it, I think, twice this week, because I just can't pull myself... Well, I guess it's resolved now, but I couldn't pull myself away from all of it as it was kind of unfolding. But yeah, like I kind of like what you're saying. There's seems like a little bit of a clunky process that is absolutely going to be revisited. But again, we'll circle back to that, because that was absolutely the story for me of deadline day. But to your point, Peter, like Brandon Hagel, 2 first-round picks, and
2 good young players.
And when we were going into Monday, I really thought in the week leading up to it that it was going to be more of a buyer's market, because you look out east, that playoff race has been settled since January. Teams knew they were out going into this. I think the West maybe complicated stuff a bit, because a month ago we were saying Dallas probably selling, Vancouver probably selling. After last night, now they're within 2 points of Vegas. So the prices for me, I was surprised with where the prices got to, And 2, I'm surprised how many people paid them. And that prices didn't seem like they came down the closer they got to deadline. Teams seemed happy to hold on to whatever player it was if they didn't have to move them.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe going to be like a bit of a wave. Like the Avs maybe jumped it a bit with Manson and got him for less than they maybe would have had the Ducks waited a little bit. And then Ben Sherratt's getting a first-round pick. Giordano's getting 2 seconds. You have a lot of players who are around Manson's level drawing significantly more. And then I thought it would maybe come down a bit because there was a certain point where I was like, well, there's like 5 forwards that I think are going to get traded, and there are only like 2 or 3 teams that I think could be in the market.
Yeah.
And the prices just never came down, and players were traded who maybe I didn't expect, and players were like Phil Kessel weren't traded who I thought maybe were. Yeah.
That was maybe the one to me that, and like it was Phil Kessel, he's dropped off and stuff, but I was blown away that Arizona, and it wasn't just Phil Kessel, like they had a number of expiring UFAs that they chose not to move on from.
Well, the big name that we heard out of Arizona for the entire year was Jake Chychrun, and Chychrun goes nowhere. Maybe it's because he has the injury late in the season or he's been underperforming, but it's the Coyotes. Everyone's been underperforming, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You can say the same thing about the Canadiens and Sherratt's underlying statistics from this year. And I mean, Lekkonen's actually been okay for a horrible Habs team this season.
Been a
but
bright spot.
Like Chychrun doesn't get moved. And that was a guy who you're talking about huge prices on deadline day that you could have expected to fetch a first, maybe 2, and a prospect, and Arizona stands pat.
Yeah.
See, that actually surprised me a little less. Some people at The Athletic have done some reporting of just how much Arizona views him very highly.
They should.
So, yeah. They think that I think, and he's under team control for a few years after this season. So I think we're pretty content that unless they were absolutely blown away, they weren't going to move him until maybe this offseason,
price was right,
or maybe they keep him. Yeah. So like that didn't shock me quite as much just because Arizona seemed to be comfortable holding on to him. I think if he was a pending UFA, it would have been a completely different story.
The other part of that too, and I kind of to both your points, is like you saw what some teams were paying, and it really did kind of make me start wondering what is the price on a guy like Chychrun, because you said, you're expecting a first, maybe 2. Like, holy shit, Brandon Hagel got that, and so it's like, well, what is going to be that cost for a guy like Chychrun?
I mean, look what Lindholm got.
Yeah, seriously, and it was. I thought maybe the Avs, when Joe Sakic made that move for Josh Manson, I remember thinking like, damn, there's probably going to be a couple GMs that are upset by that because he just kind of set the market at second-round picks, and then, 2 days later, Ben Sherratt goes, gets a first. Let's talk about Florida. Let's pause on Florida for a second. Aaron Ekblad obviously has a scary injury the night before, or is that Saturday night? Maybe word comes out that it's maybe not quite as bad as they thought on the ice, but they are going to get to flex that LTIR muscle. And, I mean, like, they went all in. They moved Frank Vatrana out to New York, clear out a little bit more cap space. Claude Giroux, and I'm now immediately drawing a blank as I'm going to list all these players.
From Buffalo.
Yeah, Robert Hagg. Sherratt. Then they also help facilitate Max Domi to the Hurricanes and recoup assets. They get picks, they get prospects. Hard to not look at them as a winner at the deadline.
Total winner. That's a wagon of a team. I've liked them going into the season. Their forward group is so deep, and now it's even deeper. I think the big question for them come playoff times is Ekblad. I for his sake, knowing what he had to go through last year, like I really hope he's able to play because they're such a fun team and he's such a good player and so important to them that if he's not healthy, considering how strong that division is and who they'd have to go through in the playoffs, I think it would be really tough for them.
Yeah.
My co-host on Between the Pipes, Mark Springer, picked the Cup final at the beginning of this year. I'm not saying it's going out on too flimsy of a limb, but he had Colorado and Florida coming out of both of the conferences. I think the biggest difference between last year's Florida team and this year's Florida team is the resurgence of Sergei Bobrovsky.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing for me there is that his first year in Florida, he flounders after being a perennial Vezina candidate. You wonder if it's
huge
time
contract.
for Spencer. Right. Is it time for Spencer Knight to come in on his rookie deal? This is this hot shot, young American goaltender who's a first-round draft pick, and he had historic numbers in his first starts, and then at the beginning of the season, it looks like he can't stop a puck, but Bobrovsky stands up. they're terrifying. They have one of the most, if not the most underrated player in the whole league in Sasha Barkov down the middle.
What's crazy is I didn't know which player you were going to name under maybe the most
like
underrated.
You can throw Huberdeau. Like Huberdeau is a guy who should probably win the MVP this year.
Wow,
and no one's talking about
his
him.
His agent certainly thinks so. I maybe wouldn't say he should win the MVP, but he's been pretty incredible.
He's been excellent.
He's in the conversation regardless.
They've got a couple of guys who, don't get the national media coverage that I think they ought to. Maybe it's because you're playing in Florida and they have a hard time filling that stadium. It's still one of the most affordable tickets in the entire league right now, but they get a lot better. And it was odd sitting here in the Denver media sphere, always thinking that Giroux wanted to come here. This has to be a destination for Giroux if he wants to win a cup. And it comes out that he wasn't even thinking about it. It was Florida or nowhere.
Yeah.
No, and that's his right. I don't begrudge him at all for that personally. He earned that in his contract, and he can go where he wants to go. And I mean, if I'm him, I'm kind of looking at that and I'm telling the Flyer, like, he played it the way I would have, in terms of like, you pick where you want to go, and kind of that's where you try to get to, and I can't blame him for that.
Yeah, and not only did he earn it in his contract, but I mean, like, that dude left nothing in Philly. Totally, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, gave everything to that organization, helped get him to a cup final once. So yeah, it's hard to blame him, but it was just a little puzzling. Not just as someone who, covers the Avs and lives in Denver and all that stuff, but I did think it was interesting that he really, and it's not like Florida's a slouch team, as we were just saying, but like, I thought it was a little interesting that there were some teams that I think have real shots to win that were interested in him, and he had his mind kind of made up.
I mean, you could argue that the East, and you should argue that the East is far more of a gauntlet to get through going into this postseason. Like, you're talking about Tampa Bay as maybe the fourth best team in that conference, probably third best team in that conference. They're coming off of back-to-back cups. And then prior to that, a season where they were President's Trophy winners and got swept out of the first round without anyone really understanding what happened through the first 8 days of the playoffs. It's odd that he stayed in the East if you're really wanting to go and chase a cup. But listen,
that's a great point.
You wanted to go a certain place. Maybe it was because of salary. Maybe it's because you didn't want to, uproot and go as far west as possible, move away from your family. But again, I can't get inside that guy's head.
Yeah. Look, and he's lived in Philadelphia for a while. I wouldn't hate South Florida either.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, it's hard to speculate, but I don't. I think that, like, it's some of it maybe some of it's family, and some of it maybe he just thought the Panthers were better than the Avs. And you know what? I can't blame him if he did. I don't know if I agree, but the Panthers are really, really good.
Yeah.
But the path is definitely harder there, where they maybe have to go, like, their playoff route could look like Toronto first round or Boston first round, either way, not an easy series. Tampa second round, and Carolina the third round. Like, that's brutal.
No thanks.
So let's talk about that, because Raj, I think you bring up started a good conversation there. The East and the West, two very different deadlines. Seemed like everybody out East loaded up. Mm-hmm. They saw what Florida was doing. It just became an arms race. And I feel like more teams out West kind of stood pat or just kind of nibbled around the edges. Do you guys think that that's purely just because of what we were just talking about, that it's just such a brutal path?
Maybe. I think also some of it is that Calgary got their work done early, which I thought was really smart. I thought they got a good price on Tyler Toffoli.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have that many more moves to make. They did a few. They got Ian Kroc from Seattle, and they did a few smaller things at the deadline, but they already made a big trade this season. Minnesota kind of loaded up in a way. Yep. And then I think if you're the Blues and you're looking at what other teams are giving up for defensemen, because that was what they're in the market for, their forward group is strong, and you're like, are we really going to pay this when we have to go through a Minnesota team that just got better and a Colorado team that swept us last year, even if the Blues are a little better than they were last year? Like, it's hard to justify giving up that much stuff for when. Yeah. And
that's what struck me as odd about the East, and particularly New York. Like, I know you have an MVP level goalie in Igor Shesterkin who would Is he your bet to win the Vezina this year?
Him, Matthews, those are kind of Matthews are kind of my two. And internally, those are I do a big deep dive before I vote. But those are kind of the two front runners in my head.
All right, so you have a goaltender who is at the top of Peter's list to win MVP.
Right.
He should walk away with the Vezina this year. And New York, in that gauntlet-style East that we just talked about, is going out and spending assets for a guy like Andrew Kopp, who may walk as a UFA in the offseason. I thought that was a really perplexing move for New York. I was shocked that more teams in the West didn't go out and do it. I think Minnesota made the biggest leap on deadline day of almost anyone. Like it's hard to put into words just how important a goaltender like Marc-Andre Fleury can be to a team that has Cam Talbot as their number one and struggled mightily. It was 65 goals against in something like 12 or 13 games on a team that views themselves as one of the harder outs in the Western Conference. They got a lot better, and they only paid a conditional first for it.
Yeah,
probably a second. It's not. The Rangers perplexed me a little bit less, just because they're in the weaker of the two East divisions.
Yeah,
I look at them and I'm like, there's no reason they couldn't go through Pittsburgh and Carolina, and they've got a defenseman who won the Norris Trophy last year. They've got they added Justin Braun, who's an okay defense. So they've got a lot of guys, and that goalie Shesterkin, if they really their bottom six and pretty much their non-top two lines was really hampering them. So they added a lot there because they got Tyler Mott too, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, could they make a run? And I don't mind that. The Nashville was weird. They traded it wasn't any big moves, but they traded for some guys who weren't that good, and they gave up some pretty significant second round picks and third round picks, and I was a little confused by that.
Yeah, the New York one, I really I looked at that as them rewarding Igor Shesterkin, hey, you got us here, we'll get you a little bit more help. But yeah, there were a couple teams. I think Nashville's a good example. Carolina obviously gets Max Domi done right at the 11th hour, but they were another team I was a little surprised
It's
that.
such a Carolina player.
It
is such a Hurricanes move to get a guy like Max Domi at the deadline at the last minute. No, you're not going to go out and get the flashy player. You're going to go out and run your head through a wall, Max Domi, because you're the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, and I thought they'd be in on John Klingberg, defenseman, but no, they go and get, to your point, a guy that makes perfect sense for what they do. He posted Max Domi tweeted a picture of him in a Photoshop Hurricanes uniform, and it looked
defense.
It fit perfectly. All right, let's circle all the way back to Raj, what you brought up earlier. Evgeny Dodonov traded from the Vegas Golden Knights with about an hour to go before the deadline. They make him and his agent aware of it, and they basically come back right away and say, hold on. Anaheim is on our no-trade list, and it turns into this 3-day kind of debacle of the Vegas Golden Knights trying to figure out, one, does he in fact have a no-trade clause? Was his list submitted on time, and is it valid? And why did we not know about it? Why didn't the league know about it? Why didn't Anaheim know about it? And from what it sounds like, it was a loss in translation when Dodonov was traded from Ottawa to Vegas. It wasn't communicated either properly or at all. But it's just turned into a big mess, and now Vegas is stuck with it. That was their cap dump to try to make money work to get guys back into the lineup as they get healthy. Has this just been kind of a culmination of Vegas's season leading up to this?
Yeah, it's funny because it seems like it might have been more Ottawa's fault than Vegas's fault. There's two really good explainers. The Jeff Merrick, Elliot Friedman, 32 Thoughts podcast did a really good rundown, and then Pierre LeBrun in The Athletic had a good explainer. But it seems like, it was probably Ottawa's fault. But I think if you look back to the question I kind of had is, why did Vegas acquire him in the first place?
Right.
That's the big puzzler to me, because they could have had that cap space for, just saved it. No, we're going to make a run at Eichel, or we're going to trade for someone else at the deadline. But no, they traded for Dodonov, who's a fine player, but probably makes more than you want to pay him.
Yep.
And yeah, now they're stuck with it. I think they still could trade him to a team. He just would be ineligible for the rest of the season, which I feel bad for him. Like, gosh, what an awful spot to be in. Like, your team just like traded you and then to a place you didn't want to go. Yeah. And then you get the trade gets void, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, you're going to be in the lineup tomorrow night. And it's like, all right.
Yeah. Well, how awkward for him either way. Either you go to Anaheim that you've now publicly said for 48 hours you don't want to be there, or you go back to a team that paid a second-round pick to get rid of you. I don't know. Like I said, it just seemed like it was kind of this is how Vegas' season has gone.
I saw a GIF earlier today that was making fun of the Toronto reversible Justin Bieber jerseys that they wore last night, which, by the way, like the actual black version of that jersey that they wore last night in their 3-2 win over the Devils was gorgeous.
I'm pro.
They're sweet. What a great jersey. Like I don't really care for the reversible side that has like the Bieber logo on it, but the one that they wore on the ice was awesome. Like, give me more of that stuff. I saw a GIF about it that had Dodonov with a reversible Knights and Ducks jersey. Laughed my ass off at it. It was great. It does feel like that's the way that Vegas' season's going. Like, it's hard to feel bad as, you know, again, I try and keep my fandom out of my reporting and my shows as much as possible. But like as a guy who grew up as an Avs fan, it's hard not to chuckle at it. But they have such a miserable injury road this year.
Yeah.
Like, you talk about missing 5 guys from the Avs lineup last night that may slot into a playoff roster if the team is completely healthy, and guys like Landeskog and Girard and Murray, who's found his game just out of the blue. Obviously, Arturi Lehkonen missing as well, and I'm missing a fifth. Bowen Byram, no doubt. With all of his concussion issues, who's now back in a no-contact jersey, but we don't know when he's going to come back. You think the Avs have injury problems right now? Just look at Vegas. You have it is $30 million, if not more, of starting players, guys who are top line talent, including your starting netminder,
including
goaltender,
captain.
And you're right, your captain, one of the best defensive players in the entire league, gone. And that is, you can't overcome that. That's Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. levels of injury.
Not to mention that that Eichel, he's played pretty well, but he's still recovering from a pretty significant surgery.
Dude didn't play for 18 months
for a long time. So, like, it's strange. I mean, it sounds like Vegas thought. I see some of the comments.
The comments screw Vegas. Shut up, guys.
I listening to the Elliot Friedman's explanation. It sounds like they were under the impression that Dodonov's, because of what the Senators communicated to them, they might have been under the impression that Dodonov's agent kind of dropped the ball and didn't submit the no trade clause, which was not the case. He did submit it, so they thought that the trade could go through. And like Central Registry asked them, like, he has a no trade list. Like, is that a problem? Like, and they were like, no, we're in the clear. So what a weird miscommunication. And they really do have to have a more centralized system to look at this, where it's not like because there's not like a cap friendly for GMs,
right? Which makes no sense. I can't remember which one of your colleagues I was reading this morning on The Athletic, but they kind of went through, and it was the same realization that we had a few minutes ago. Was I can't believe that you don't plug this into a system to make sure that everything just simply works. We don't know when 10-team trade or no trade clauses are submitted by a player.
Right.
It shocks me that there's not a centralized date for every single player in the league to say, hey, these are the teams that you can be traded to. These are the teams that you are going to reject trades to. And if you decide to waive it in the middle of the season or at the trade deadline, that's okay. You just have to notify us. It baffles me that there's not some sort of safeguard like that, where it's just like a couple of emails and Jenny in accounting's like, yeah, you guys are cool with this one.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. Like, I thought it was weird when the reports came out. They're like, they had the email. I was like, an email? Like,
and Ottawa just didn't, I guess, and they
didn't forward it?
They had an email.
Sorry, I missed this.
They didn't miss it, though. Ottawa had the email and acknowledgement of receipt. They sent it back. Wild. Just
crazy.
Bizarre.
And so now Vegas is on the hook for that money. There's talk that they may try to flip him in Arizona and he wouldn't be eligible. It's like, Yeah, I wouldn't burn a bridge or anything like that. Like, there is part of it that
he'd still get paid though, and he could just go play golf for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So I know you're not chasing a cup, but there could be worse things. Like you could get shipped off to Winnipeg.
Yeah, that is true. You could. Yeah, shout out AJ. Enjoy Winnipeg. No, but it's just an interesting, and I don't even think it's necessarily just Avs fans. I do think there is a bit of a people don't feel bad for Vegas. Like they came into the league, went to the Stanley Cup Finals year one, have made the playoff, have been to the conference finals every year but once. I just think that they're a team that right, wrong, and different people in the hockey world don't feel bad for. And look, like they've landed a lot of big names in the last few years. You wonder if some of that turnover is what's leading to this, but
yeah. Well, they've always kind of been like this big house of cards, which I've really enjoyed actually. Like this, this might not be a popular. I think it's great that there's this one team that's like,
it's great for the sport.
Screw the future. We're just gonna do everything we can to bring in the biggest guys we can. But what you saw was over time, it's like, okay, they have this great team. They slowly have deprived themselves of all future chips, all their picks, all their prospects, all of that.
Yep.
And you just know that like when their core starts to age, it's going to come crumbling down really fast. And this might be the start of it, but it also might not, because next year they could just have Stone, Pacioretty, Eichel.
Yeah.
Like they could still be really good.
You do have that bargaining chip of, hey, come play in Vegas, right? It's the new sexy place to be a professional athlete. It's typically gorgeous weather. It's funny. The House of Cards is the perfect analogy for that team. And they're the complete antithesis of what's happening in Seattle right now, right? Seattle's on the 5-year plan, and they know they're going to suck this year. They know they're probably going to suck next year, and they're just going to ship everyone out. They have 27 draft picks in the next 2 drafts. Sorry, 20... No, I think it's right. 27 draft picks in the next 2 drafts for the Kraken. And Vegas, like Peter just said, is we don't have any farm system. And I think that's the reason why that you're in that cap trouble is because you've shipped off all of those entry-level contracts that you could possibly have. And now you have all these, veterans on expensive deals. Like Dadonov at $5 million is wild. Yeah. And you have a lot more of that on the roster.
Yeah. And they had even not only the entry level deals, they had like Tuck on a bargain deal and stuff. Like he was making I think 4 or something now in Buffalo. Like that would have helped. Yeah, they're a fascinating team. They're still going to be good when they're healthy, but the question is if they get there. And I mean they're running out of time. I don't think they're going to make it.
Yeah. The math is really starting to look bad for them, and I think they've only got 16 games left. And I mean, they're going to spend a lot of nights here watching teams just pass them in the standings as they just kind of sit by, because a lot of teams have games to make up. Let's shift gears to the Avs. I am going to remind all the lovely folks listening at home about our great friends over at DraftKings. You were asking earlier about who your bet is to win the Hart Trophy. I actually took Igor Shesterkin a couple months ago because the odds on him on DraftKings were just too good. Oh,
that's smart.
And things are looking up. But right now, guys, they are running a great promo on March Madness. You can turn $5 on any team, bet for just $5, and you can win $200 in free bets if they win. It's that simple. If they win, you win. You can also make some great money on college hoops with same-game parlays, which I also love taking part in during the NHL season. Combine multiple bets from the same game for bigger payouts. The more legs you add, obviously, the more money you win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR. Bet just $5 on any college hoops team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. If they win, you win with promo code DNVR. This week at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. So yeah, I think we've got a nice little wrap on the league. It was a really busy deadline day, one of the busier ones that I can remember in the last few years. And the Avs were definitely no exception there, right? Obviously, they started a week early, bringing in Josh Manson, flipping Tyson Jost for Nico Sturm. And then on deadline day, everyone was kind of waiting for the big chip to fall. And sure enough, Arturi Lehkonen for Justin Barron and a second from the Montreal Canadiens. And then they do also bring in Andrew Cogliano for a 2024 fourth. Just kind of blanket, how'd you guys feel the Avs did?
I thought pretty well, honestly. I think that I've been kind of beating the drum that they really needed to bolster their bottom six forward group.
Yeah.
And I think Lehkonen is a really good player, really smart, really good defensively, really good underlying numbers.
Yeah.
A lot of things that Colorado likes. It makes perfect sense that they wanted him. And you have him probably under term for the next few years. And I think that was a really big pickup, and I really liked that they did that. And I thought they needed to. So I think that was the first, that was that on my like internal, like what the Avs need, that was number one.
Yeah.
It got to like 11:40 on Monday, and I was like, are they going to do something? Like they've got to do something.
Yeah.
And they did.
Is there another Patrick Nemeth involved?
Yeah. Because let's
Vladislav and Mesnikov?
Yeah, like let's look at it. Like last year's deadline wasn't enough. They tried to kind of make moves around the edges, which is similar to what they did this year. They just got worse players.
Yeah. It was more impactful this year.
Yeah, like this year, it's like, Lehkonen is at the very bare minimum going to provide really good defensive play, really hard-nosed, going to be really hard to play against. If things go well, he's also going to be able to bring some more offense than they've had. I think that, you look at so it is really it is interesting seeing how much more they gave up this year compared to last year. But last year they didn't really give up anything. Mm-hmm. This year they gave up two of their three best defenseman prospects, not counting Byram. But like of the three that haven't played in the NHL or haven't played more than 2 games, Barron, Hellison, and Barons.
Yeah.
They gave up 2 of those and 2 second-round picks and what else did they get? And Jost and a 5th. So I thought it was good. I thought it was smart. I think Cogliano, like, best case scenario, he plays on your 4th line and is a really good grinder and all that. Worst case scenario, he's a healthy scratch and he's the old guy you're trying to win a cup for.
Yeah.
And either way, that's fine. Like,
right.
So I was pretty. And you didn't give up anything for him.
Give
a 5th. 2024 5th.
2024. That's 2 years from now problem. Raj, what do you think?
In those 2 trades, in the Cogliano trade and the Jost trade, I don't think you gave up really anything. The role that he was slotted in as a 4th line center for a guy who doesn't win many draws, is undersized, doesn't play a heavy game, although he did change his game when he understood what that role was, to be a little bit more sound defensively. You need to have a bigger body in there, someone who's actually going to win draws. Nico Sturm comes in, he struggles last night on the draw, going only like 38%, but the night before he goes 7 for 9, 4 for 4 in the defensive zone, which is something that you couldn't rely on Jost to do. I liked that move. I think I like it for Tyson too. You just need a little bit of a change of scenery.
I hope all the best.
No doubt.
For him. Yeah.
No doubt. When I say like he didn't really give up much, I'm just saying like,
well, look,
his time had come here in Denver.
Yeah. It was time for a change. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you look at, and there are a lot worse outcomes to have with a number 10 overall pick. Like he's a productive.
There's a lot of number 10s that don't stick in the league.
Duncan Siemens was 11 overall.
He's a productive bottom 6 player. He's going to be around for a long time. And it'll be interesting to see if he ever gets to a place where he maybe has more of a chance to be on a second line and see if like he can kind of
here's North Dakota Tyson Jost.
Develop some more offensive games. So I'm curious to see his trajectory. But I think that trade made sense for both teams because Jost has a higher ceiling moving forward, but is less equipped to play the 4th line center role than Nico Sturm is.
Completely agree.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great observation because that was kind of my thing where I was saying like, let's say at worst you're saying Nico Sturm and Tyson Jost are kind of equivalent in terms of like their production and stuff like that, but you got bigger, you got a little bit heavier, and I think Sturm put it in a great way in his kind of introductory press conference where he said, "I'm hard to play against. Not that I'm gonna like put you through the wall, but I'm tough to knock off the puck. I'm heavy on my stick." And there was a play that stood out to me last night. It was in the defensive zone where he just like kind of forearm shiver a guy right off the puck and was going up ice where it's like, yeah, he didn't plaster him on the wall, but he wanted the puck. He played him hard on the wall and he was going the other direction. And that's exactly what Jared Bednar's looking for.
It seems like this trade deadline compared to last year's, outside of the getting better players part of it, which is the first and foremost number one thing you have to do as a GM there. I think Sakic filled the holes that Bednar had on the team. You get a big and bruising defenseman in Josh Manson, despite his defensive zone turnovers the last 2 games, which have been a little tough to watch. But those things will come and go as a D-man. You saw what he could do in the first game that he played for the Avs with 10 hits. He's a mean son of a gun, comes from NHL bloodlines, slots in great as a second line or a third line defensive pairing guy. I loved that move. I was a huge fan of it. Cogliano, I agree, is probably a 13th forward. At the best, he gives you a penalty kill option. Lehkonen gives you certainly a number 1 PK guy. And that's been a huge Achilles heel for the Avs. Certainly at the beginning of the season, they've been
Not
better.
Lately. They've been good.
Right, yeah. As of late, right, over the last month and a half, 2 months, they've been top 10 in the league in the PK. Yeah. They've also been top 10 in the power play, but the 5-on-5 scoring has shriveled. I think you found a way to answer the questions that a lot of people had about this team. Yeah. Can they win that first? Can they win that second round playoff series? And then, the world is your oyster, go win a cup type of thing. Obviously, you have to get all those things done, but I think Sakic has put his team in a better position this year than they were last year. It sucks that you have to give up those 2 defensive prospects, but what it told me, right, the shrug right there, that's the big thing. The shrug is they could be good 3, 4, 5 years from now, right? Barron probably makes the roster next year in Montreal as a rookie. Hellison is 2-3 years away, most likely, from actually making an NHL roster, so they can't help you right now. And what that tells me is that you are completely bought in on your long-term contracted defensive core of Byram, Girard, Taves, and Makar. Yeah. And that's okay, right? You can't pay all of those guys all that money and still have young studs coming up the line, having to pay them after their ELCs. You are eventually going to have to move them. Why not try and win a cup while you do it?
Yeah. And I think it's also, you look at, I really like both Barron and Hellison.
Oh, yeah.
But if you look at both of them, it's like Barron is probably projects as a number 4 defenseman, maybe a number 3. Mm-hmm. And that's, even in the future, replacement. This isn't giving up a Cale Makar or a Owen Byram or a guy who could be a top. I mean, he could maybe be a secondary top pairing defense, on
Arizona's lineup, he'd play on the top.
Or like when Ryan Graves played on the top pairing with Makar. With Cale.
Yeah,
he's not. But he's not. You're not giving up someone who could be like a Norris Trophy finalist, or something.
Right,
like that.
Unless something goes crazy.
Which hopefully for him it does. That'd be awesome. Really nice guy, and I think he's a really good player.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that you gave up things that hurt to give up, but that you can live with. You didn't give up. It wasn't Ottawa in the Matt Duchene trade giving up the pick that became Bowen Byram.
Yeah. Seriously, and Joe Sakic held on to his first-round pick in 2023, which is projected to be a really good draft. And again, I don't think that there's any of that stuff outside of the Barron one, which stings a little bit in terms of on ice that you are upset with giving up. And you guys both made a couple comments there that, again, are kind of interesting. When you're fully healthy, you're talking about Josh Manson as a third pairing defenseman in Colorado. That is just outstanding. Arguably a third.
Josh Manson and Murray, who was a top 3, was he number 2 overall pick, if I'm correct?
Number 2, yeah.
That's your third pairing?
Right.
That's fantasy land stuff.
Right. And then you're going to have 3 of these 4, Cogliano, Helm, Abe Kubel, and Logan O'Connor. 3 of those guys will be a healthy scratch if this forward core gets back to full health come playoff time. It's just absurd amounts of depth. And I think Joe Sakic has seen them run into injuries each of the last 2-3 playoff runs. I think he's saying, we're not going to do that again. We are going to get legitimate NHL talent to some extent we're going to have to go 4-5 injuries deep before you're having to dip into any of that taxi squad, black aces conversation.
Well, and what's interesting is they also have guys that they haven't been able to bring guys up from the minors really, just because they've been trying to accrue space, which is why you saw them kind of play down a few guys and stuff. But I'm curious if come playoff time, could a guy like a Kiefer Sherwood or you have those guys that you never know. They could, Bednar could, I don't think he's going to be worrying too much about hurting feelings. He's going to play who he thinks is best. And if Kiefer Sherwood finishes the American League season strong and looks great in practice, who knows? Maybe he's on your 4th line. Maybe Dylan Sekura, maybe, there's all these guys, Mikhail Maltsev, who will have to change numbers. But yeah, you have all of these guys that like maybe one of them is, I would say one of those three is like a potentially, I mean, Kiefer Sherwood played in the playoffs last year. Like,
yeah. And he's had a great AHL season.
AHL. He's got the skills. It hasn't fully translated at the NHL level, but like you watch him play and if you watch him practice, he has an amazing shot.
Yeah.
Such a good shot.
Yeah. He wears the white gloves under his gloves, and it always freaks me out a bit when you see it up close. Yeah. He wears like white gloves. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have tried that.
Yeah.
What was I doing?
But yeah, no. So just depth all over the place, and I think that's what they were going for. It's hard to look at this roster, at least on paper, and say, it's hard to find like a weakness at any position. And I think heading into the deadline, there were a couple of areas where you could look at it and say, yeah, like you said, the bottom six, you want to see a little bit of an improvement here. Yeah. Maybe you don't love rolling with that Johnson and Johnson pair going into, kind of a heavy nose series in the second, third round. You short all that stuff up. I haven't had an issue with their goaltending all year. Yeah. I know there are some people that think that.
They're the same people that will always have an issue with
right.
Well, the thing is a goalie isn't playoff proven until he is playoff proven.
Yeah.
Like Kemper hasn't really been in a spot. It's not that Kemper isn't a playoff goal. It's just that he's never been in a situation where he's had a chance to go far. And I mean, I was a little early in the season. I was a little intrigued of like, okay, Kemper's been fine, but he hasn't been what you paid for necessarily. But then I look at, I think December 8th when he came back from an upper body injury. They were playing in New York. He was okay that night, and since then he has been. I haven't checked in the last few days, but if you look at like Evolving Hockey's goal saved above expected, he is better than Shesterkin. He has like a .930 save percentage. Some of this might have gone down in the last couple games. I don't know, but like
it's in that ballpark.
He's been really, really impressive. And Francouz, I don't love your chances to win a like conference finals playoff series with Francouz, but he gives you a chance.
Yeah.
As a number one, you're not super confident about it with Francouz, but as a backup,
if something happens,
could he win 2 out of 3? Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna have to play really well in front of him, and I think like with Francouz, you see he gets sheltered a little bit by the opponents he plays against, and I think he's a great like 1B or 2 goalie, and that's. Yeah,
that's what the contract extension tells you too. What the organization thinks about him.
Yeah, great vibes also.
Oh yeah, no, he's great, and I really do think, to your point, I think that contract extension was they understood that if he got to market, there are plenty of middling teams that are still rebuilding that would have given him a look as a 1B, probably a little bit more money. I think of a team like New Jersey. I think of a team like Arizona. Probably would have given that guy a look with, offered him a few more games. We'll start winding down here. I do want to hear just your guys' outlook for the Avs the rest of the way now that the trade deadline's behind us. We know who's here, who's not. I do want to talk also about Evoca. Evoca TV, they're a great new partner of ours, and they're solving a major problem for a lot of people in Denver. If you haven't been able to watch the Nuggets or Avalanche, Evoca TV is here to save the day. That's EVOCA TV. Brand new TV delivery system. It's less expensive and offers an awesome picture. It includes local networks like Altitude Sports. You get all kinds of national channels with it as well. Available in Denver, Colorado Springs, Phoenix, Boise, and Twin Falls, Idaho, and that's growing every day. They're making it easy to follow Colorado teams that you guys love, including the Nuggets, the Avs, Rapids, and Mammoth. That's right. You no longer have to go through any, shady back channels or alleys. Just go over to evoca.tv/DNVR. Only $25 a month plus a receiver. No contracts, no hidden fees. The price is locked in for 2 years. And you can rent an additional receiver as well. Look, I could have stopped it. You can watch Avs and Nuggets, and that's really all that matters. So head on over evoca.tv/DNVR. Get signed up. They'll get you the equipment. It is super easy to get set up. And yeah, you can watch this great run that both these teams are on. So the Nuggets also start to get healthy. Saw Bones Highland.
One hopes.
Yeah, one hopes. Saw Bones Highland at Ball Arena the other night at like 11 a.m. working out, or 11 p.m.
I love Bones.
Talk about vibes, man. Right?
Great
Francouz vibes. Bones he redefines the vibe.
Yeah, Bones is just like
Yeah, dude, seriously.
just pure electricity. Like and he is not afraid of anything.
No.
Like I have no connection to the Nuggets. I'm not from Denver or anything, but I just love watching Bones Highland play.
Dude, he called into our Nuggets post-game show like 2 weeks ago. Just like he was like, he sent them a thing on Twitter. He's like, hey, are you guys still on? Called into the show just because he wanted to talk about the game.
Get the guy down for a beer, damn it.
I love.
Come on, Allie, figure it out.
Hey, and I went to college very briefly with Michael Porter Jr. He was not there for very long. Did not play very many basketball games.
What, he played 2 games at Mizzou?
Well, he played 2 minutes in the first game of the year. An electric 2 minutes. That building, I'm not even.
But let me tell you, 2 minutes.
But like that building was so loud,
Expert
and people
right here.
because that was like everyone was like, oh my gosh, this team is gonna be like stacked. Like we have these great recruits all around. Michael Porter's here. He gets announced. He comes in. He scores a bucket, and then he's like, my back's hurt. Then he doesn't play again, and he was never 100% the rest of the way. But his back history scares me. I'll say that.
You were there for it.
I was there. I saw the glorious 2 minutes of hope where everyone thought Mizzou was going to win a national title.
Cool, guys. So, yeah, we'll start winding this down. So, with everything kind of now behind us, we've seen where all the other teams have shaken out. We've seen the moves that the Avs have made. How do you guys feel about the Avs, about their road to what's hopefully a Cup final, and just the moves they've made?
Yeah, I thought that they put themselves in the right position. I think that, like, really all you can do in this league is keep giving yourself a chance at bites and apple. Hockey's a random sport.
Yeah.
It's more unpredictable, I would say, in the playoffs than just about any of the major sports.
Yeah.
And you're giving yourself a chance year in and year out. And this year you have one of the best rosters in the league. You have one of the best players in the league. You have one of the best defensemen in the league. Like, and you have depth, and they're gonna need those 2 middle lines to score. I think that's gonna be.
Yeah.
I think that I can't stress enough how important the potentially Lehkonen Newhook Comfer line.
Seriously,
will be. And I like that line. People get mad at JT Comfer. Maybe he isn't necessarily.
I'm convinced
$5 million player, but he's so good, like responsible defensively and just better than people get. That's a different
I'm convinced it was because he was brought up in the Ryan O'Reilly deal, and everyone was like, "Oh, here's the center to replace Ryan O'Reilly." It's like, no.
Yeah.
That's not what he is. I agree with you.
So I think that's a good third line. Whether or not they can score, I think will be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
The scoring's huge. Over the last 30 games, the Avs have 180 points combined from 6 players. That's your top 5 plus Nazem Kadri. The rest of the roster is combined for 108. That's an average of 6 points per player, and 39 of those points have come from Valeri Nichushkin and Andrei Burakovsky, who's only scored 4 goals in that time. The secondary scoring has to work. Do you need to light the lamp constantly? No, but it needs to be better than it has been over the past few weeks for the Avs to be, true. They are true Cup contenders, but to get over
there.
the hump, right?
Because you see shutdown lines in the playoffs.
Yes.
That, like, just figure out a way to the McKinnon line just gets. I mean, in the Vegas series last year, the McKinnon line could not get anything going for games, the middle games of the series.
There's going to be games that happens, and then you're going to have to look down the line and be like, Berkey, you're a guy who should score 30 goals a year in the NHL. Hit the frickin' net, and you have to hope that it actually happens. So,
I mean, if he goes on a heater heading into the playoffs,
right, like
that
2
would
years
be
ago in the
biggest-
playoffs.
I mean, that would be like the most clutch thing in the world because he is so good when he's on.
Oh,
amazing.
Dude, yeah,
and I never think it's like a lack of like effort or try with him. It's just like some days it's working, some days it's not.
He's streaky. 2 years ago in the playoffs, right? 17 points in 15 games. That's a damn good player.
Contract year, maybe.
Who knows? Dude, speak about contract years. Old guy who played here in Colorado, Matt Duchene's got 36 bingos this year because it's a contract year. Dude, this team. Last year was the first year that I think you could have expected them. Like, your expectation should have been Cup final. I think that was the first year. So the people that are like, oh, this is the last year that the Avs can win a Cup with this core, shut the hell up. bonkers statement right there.
Yeah.
You have a long window, but you should have the same expectation this year from this team. It is get to a cup final or bust. Does that mean get to a cup final or blow everything up? No, it doesn't, but that should be your expectation this year. Peter put it perfectly. Year in, year out, this organization has set their team up for success, and they're continuing to do so not only this year but going into the future. I think they got a great shot. I got Colorado, Florida as your final. I know it's shocker right there, but it's
been a popular pick amongst the DNVR-ites.
I picked that as the cup before the season. I'm zagging. I'm going back on Tampa to get to the cup. I mean, they're so good.
Yeah.
Like people like Florida got a lot better. Yes. Tampa didn't get any worse, it appears.
Well, they have the best goalie in the world.
They have the best goalie in the world. They have one of the, I mean, people might get
You
mad.
can say it. Dude, say it. Say it.
Best defenseman in the world, probably. I'm sorry. That's not okay.
Well,
I love Victor Hedman.
It's
one of those he is till he's not, right?
Guys, he's so good.
He's
crazy
really
good, yeah.
It's him and Makar are here, and then
there's everyone
I go
else.
back and they're a little different. Like Hedman's better defensively, less offensively kills.
He's huge.
Yeah, and he's huge. So and he's a horse.
He is a behemoth.
He can play like that. That man.
Kira goes, bye, Peter.
That man can play like 33 minutes a game, which Kale can. To me, it's
Kale played 28 last night.
They're tied.
Kale will overtake him at some point.
I'm gonna say for now, my defenseman rankings tied number 1, Makar and Hedman.
Yeah,
and then I don't know. There's that's the top tier. Then there's the Fox Yossi, that kind of tier.
Yeah,
All right,
I agree.
I'm done making people mad.
I'll say, and we haven't even gotten to your bad food takes yet, which we might even skip.
We had such great reviews until those last 2 minutes. What did we do?
Hedman's really good.
But no, I think you guys both have nailed the head, and that's kind of how we'll end it. They've set themselves up. I thought Bednar had a phenomenal line yesterday when he said, "You always think you're good till someone shows you that you're not," and they put themselves in a great position to keep from being shown that they're not a good team. They've got depth all over the place, and I can't find a spot on this lineup that you don't like on paper.
People forget you were 5 minutes away from being up 3-0 against Vegas in the second round of the playoffs. You were a boneheaded 7 seconds of hockey from Ryan Graves from probably winning that game in overtime before Mark Stone goes on a breakaway, right? Like you had 2 shin pads where you looked off Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon. So everyone's like, oh, you got bullied out of the second round by Vegas. Like
wasn't as bad as people remember.
You had a chance to end that. It just didn't go your way and you went into a turtle. That's a good learning
and
spot.
They blew it.
They blew it. 100%.
That's when people say the 3 second round series in a row, I'm like, yes, they have lost in the second round 3 times in a row. The last time is the one that
the only one that really hurts.
You are a Finnish legend story away from beating Dallas in 7 games. You are a Zapruder film away from beating San Jose in a 7th game. So there's a few things that didn't go your way. Peter's right. They blew it last year, but they were closer than a lot of people think. They're a better team this year than they were last year. Just have fun with it. It's a freaking awesome team to watch and cover. It's come here, watch the games here, and just again, I wish I could. I wish I could not do the show afterwards and just drink 7 beers and have a great time. Maybe I will.
Well, we'll have you back, and we'll do that. We'll do that on the next show. 7 beers each, and then we'll just see. We'll see what kind
the
of.
last time that you saw me when I had a lot of drinks.
I don't like beer, so I'm out on beer.
I know we're up against it.
Yeah, we've got
okay, I'll
seltzers.
do that. Some wine.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
All right, sweet.
We'll class
I know
the show
we're
up.
up against it here, but Jesse and I put this together drunkenly over margaritas on Saturday night.
We did,
we have a mutual friend, and my girlfriend looks at me and she goes, if Will tries to make you a margarita tonight, don't drink it. So we're 2 margaritas deep at dinner, just having a nice fun time. That should be fine. An hour and a half later, after this dude makes me a margarita, I'm on my hands and knees on my carpet at home, mind you, ruining my gray carpet.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, I've had the margaritas before, so I got 1.5 in. I was like, that's probably enough for me.
Yeah, you didn't tell me until you DM'd me the next day. He was like, you were an idiot. You had 2 of those things. Thanks, Jesse.
I need to meet this guy.
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time out to come down here, hang out. I'd love to have you guys back down again. We can do this all over again. We'll have you down here for an away game, Peter.
That'd be great.
And
remember, tie. Hedman and Makar. Hedman is the best defenseman in the Eastern Conference.
There you go.
That's a great way to put it.
Perfect way. This is the Denver Sports Podcast brought to you guys by Breckenridge Brewery. We'll talk to you all later.